Hello beautiful people, listen Daruma, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be checking this video which is titled "Should You Be Ashamed to Be British?" Okay, interesting. We're going to be checking this video together. Let's check it out.
Should you be ashamed to be British? Great Britain went from being a relatively small, unsuspecting island off the coast of Europe to controlling roughly a quarter of the world's landmass. One might assume that Britons would be impressed and inspired by this, but in fact many across this island nation view their country's past as a source of great shame. At present, the country is at boiling point, with riots recently sweeping the nation, and the future looks worrying to say the least. But for now, let's look to the past to see if Britons can take pride in their heritage, or if they should in fact feel shame for the actions of their forebearers. Let's begin by finding out why some view Britain as uniquely despicable. Many claim that the British people come from a long line of enslavers, thieves, and murderers, allegations which largely stem from the actions of the British Empire, many of which were indeed brutal. Britain, as previously mentioned, controlled a significant portion of the world, and an empire doesn't get to that size without a bit of violence.
Absolutely true. And it's the fact that lots of people forget every other thing. The good. Let's talk about the good. Lots of people forget the good and always make references to the bad. Picture it for a moment, because obviously Britain is standing today because they have to give up something. And I mean, lots of the things that happened in the past, not everything is going to be nice. And everybody is not going to have an happy ending or happy story. But Britain today, they are responsible for so many nations. Is that not a good thing? But no, people always want to make references to some things and be like, oh, we should fault them for something. Even you as an individual, you're not 100% nice. But faulting a nation that gives people, lots of people, we're not even talking about just one person or one nation. We're talking about lots of nations. Lots of nations, even the ones that got birthed by some, lots of nations. For you, Britain, and it's still standing today. Which, do you think lots of nations could survive it or could stand it? And the fact that lots of people are bringing and saying, oh, they want it down, and making people who are British feel guilty for something their ancestors did, rather than take pride and say, yes, our ancestors did not know better, but they did the best they could to restore and make Britain stand today. Point one country or one nation that is a saint or that wasn't involved in something wrong. Point it out. Why fault one country? Why? Why fault Britain?
The British conquered country after country, and as people usually don't appreciate
This is my country, Nigeria, and I can see the flag.
violence. The British conquered country after country.
This is it. Country after country, you name it. We're seeing this is the Irish flag, or Irish flag. This is it Irish or Bangladesh? Okay, no, this is Bangladesh, I think. Yeah. This is American flag. America. Rated from by who or from where? Britain. This is India. This looks like Australia. This is South Africa, and this is Nigeria. Only to name a few. One that is Britain. Britain lost more, and the ones they birthed also birthed some group of people. Just like a mother birthing the child birthing lost more, and generation to come, coming from one. But no, we are gonna fault them for like something. I mean, it's just like somebody doing something wrong and apologizing and trying to rectify what they did and make using their good to erase the bad. But lots of people be like, no, we're gonna focus on the bad things. Your good does not outweigh, or your good would not supersede the bad thing you've done. We're still gonna remember the bad thing and make you feel guilty. Does it make sense? Because is there any nation that is standing today that we know today that is in power that was not involved in something? Point me that country. Point it with your full chest. a nation or a country that is standing today, that is all that got to where they are standing as saints or as good people? Point it out.
And as people usually don't appreciate being taken over by a foreign people, they made plenty of enemies along the way. Whilst conquest is never peaceful, there are numerous examples of appalling British acts against native populations. In 1919, British soldiers opened fire on thousands at a peaceful rally in Amritsar, India, killing anywhere from 379 to 1,500 protesters. The British also notoriously contributed to the deaths of roughly 1 million people during the Irish potato famine by forcing the Irish people to continue to export food despite major shortages. Britain was also one of the first countries to use concentration camps, imprisoning thousands of Afrikaners in them during the Second Boer War. Remaining in South Africa, the British created racist laws there prior to independence, banning black people from voting and only allowing them to live in certain areas, beginning the chain of events that led to apartheid and South Africa being the modern world's most unequal country. This isn't the only present-day issue that is a direct result of British imperialism. Today's tensions and territorial disputes between India and Pakistan stem from the partition of British India, when the subcontinent was hastily divided into a Hindu and a Muslim state, inadequately considering religious and ethnic boundaries, leading to 1 million people dying, largely due to intercommunal violence, and 15 million being displaced. The unstable nature of the Middle East is also partly due to British imperialism. In 1916, Britain and France signed the Sykes-Picot Agreement, splitting up the Ottoman Empire between the two countries once the First World War had ended. Again, little consideration was given to ethnic boundaries, splitting up certain groups and depriving them of self-determination, whilst giving major power to certain local rulers who had found favour with Europeans.
Yeah, we understand some negative events or negative things happen. We're not going to erase that or talk about and say, okay, that part of history should be forgotten. We're not erasing that. But look at it, picture it. Imagine if Britain had stayed where they were without getting themselves involved in this. It will still happen anyways. Am I lying? The answer is no. It would still happen anyways, and they will still force them for not getting involved. They got involved, problem. They did not get involved, problem. What do people really want? What do people really want? If you're looking for somebody to come save you, don't up and choose and tell them when they should come and when they shouldn't and what type of help they should be giving to you. They have their people they could take care of. Do you think with all of the nations or all of the people Britain helped today, if they had put in that same effort to Britain to help their own people, do you think their people will not be living off on some island? They will. But they decided, the fun fact is, the British people are not even taking pride of being Britain. That is what is even annoying. And we get it. We're not even faulting it because, I mean, lots of them, they hear some stories and they be like, oh no, they don't want to be part of this. They don't want to be attached to it. But the fact that Britain left their own people, did not take care of their own people as they should, but decided to sort out for people who they thought needed their help the most. They did. It's just like a father refusing to take care of his children or his family, but taking care of some other group of people's family, cousins, you name it, taking care of those families and neglecting his. Think about it for a moment. If your father does that to you, you would resent your father. But I mean, lots of people don't want to, you don't want to see the good. It's even the people who were helped that are even like faulting them. Oh, you helped, you shouldn't have helped. Nobody was asking for your help. Okay, nobody, writes. And it's the exact same thing we see today. If they don't help, problem. If they do, problem. What do you really want?
Agreement led to the creation of unstable nations such as Lebanon, Syria, and
Okay, let's go back.
Iraq, to ethnic boundaries, splitting up certain groups and depriving them of self-determination, whilst giving major power to certain local rulers who had found favour with Europeans. This agreement led to the creation of unstable nations such as Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, and is significantly responsible for the Kurdish-Turkish conflict which lasts to this day. This agreement is also responsible for the Arab-Israeli conflict. As part of the deal, Britain received the region of Palestine, and in 1917, Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour declared that Britain would use the territory to establish a national home for the Jewish people. Whilst he did promise to protect the rights of existing non-Jews in the region, over a century later, conflict is still raging between the Jewish state and its Arab neighbours, with thousands dying on both sides and millions of Palestinians being displaced. Britain was also a key player in the slave trade, with British ships transporting millions of African slaves across the Atlantic to do forced labour in brutal conditions. English cities like Bristol and Liverpool enjoyed great prosperity from the trade, and the Crown also profited, with monarchs such as Elizabeth I and Charles II investing heavily in slave trading voyages.
But was it only Britain that was also only involved in slave trade? Because I want to believe that while lots of once something was happening somewhere, another thing was happening somewhere. Because if we're gonna be looking at the scope or looking at history itself, everything. Okay, why is it that I'm honestly asking this question? Why, when it comes to slave trade or when it regards to slave trade, they're only talking about some particular group of people? Other countries, they have history too, right? The other countries who are long-standing today, they also participated in slave trade. Nobody's talking about their involvement, but because people are looking for who to blame, talk about them. So okay, let's say only Britain was involved in slave trade and the slave and whatever, and their cities prospered today. Their cities were so prosperous. Other countries did not prosper. And then when it was time for people to come and say, "Oh, we need help," then Britain took out of their prosperity to still help. So what is the problem? Let's say, okay, the slave trade itself, only Britain was the only ones that participated in slave. Other countries did not participate. So they went to some of the villages or some of the countries or some of these places. Okay, most likely lots of countries were not named or lots of nations were still in bondage. So they went into this place, kidnapped them, and leaving their head. Because I want to believe that somebody would come to your house and they will leave the head, left their head, the people that are governing, because obviously you don't know nothing about this place you're going to. You have no knowledge about it. You have no idea. But you got there, disrupted it, and went back to your place and behaved like the king. That is what I want to believe. Because if that is the scope or if that is the story they want to create, then you know where the lie is coming from. Because obviously, it's just like the countries we see today that have president, and you're telling me that a country would come into that country, kidnap the people of the country without the president being aware that some group of people are coming into your country to and looking for some particular group of people or are looking for something. I want to believe that is the narrative they want to paint. Because if that is the narrative, you know where the lie is coming from. You know where it's coming from. Why are they telling you, or why are they making up stories? So I want to also believe that other countries' involvement in slave trade are also shared here, or are also talked about.
Britain also has a reputation for thievery, with the British Museum in London possessing many historical artefacts that are viewed as stolen, such as the Benin bronzes which were looted from the Kingdom of Benin by British troops in 1897. And it's not just the British Museum who possess some dubiously acquired goods. The crown worn by Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother at her coronation, which currently sits on display in the Tower of London, features a diamond which has been claimed by the governments of India, Pakistan, Iran and Afghanistan, as it was previously owned by a variety of rulers in the Indian subcontinent before mysteriously ending up in British hands.
So how did it end up there? Okay, British stole it. No, Britain stole it. Wow. Just wow. The type of mindset we hear of lots of people have is crazy, because in back in the day it was trade and what's it called, it was kind of like a mutual agreement, or buying, just like buying and selling. You buying something and somebody giving you goods, you're paying for something. So obviously back in the day lots of people had nothing. Some or lots of nations could not even afford some whatever. So this person or this nation, because they had this or they could, because I mean, where did all of this fall from? Lots of people came together and said, okay, let us look for something, and okay, we may be needing this, and this country have got this. Let us go and ask, okay, what do they want? If we have what they can, then we give to them. If they don't, then we look for a way to create some resources or whatever available and give to them. So where is the thievery? Okay, that's a part of the history we want to be told, hearing. Okay, no problem. Or they want to be told. No problem.
Furthermore, the British often exploited the indigenous populations of their colonies for financial gain, forcing the natives to sell their goods to the British at incredibly low prices, and requiring them to buy British goods at inflated prices. This created huge profits for Britain, with some even estimating that the UK exploited India out of the equivalent of $45 trillion during its time in the subcontinent.
Okay, imagine, okay, let's look at it. Imagine on this note, sorry I'm pausing this too long, but on this note, let's look at it. You gave somebody, you went to a bank to take up a loan. Let's use that. And let's say the loan you're sorting out for is um $30,000 or £30,000. No, let's just say that, or let's say £3,000. Let's just keep it at like bare minimum. You're looking for £3,000 or $3,000, and the bank looked at your documents and all of that and decided to give you the loan. Oh, this is what you're worth, or this is what we can give you. We're giving you let's say we're giving you the amount you're looking for. Do you think the bank should not have interest in that loan or on that loan and just give you 3,000 and expect you to pay back 3,000? Do you think, in your own church mind, do you think that bank should give you that money and you should still pay back that same one without interest? Because if that is how they are supposed to be operating, do you think that bank would be standing today? Because if they lend everybody all the exact same amount of money and they do not pay back with interest, do you think that bank will be standing today? Let's wait for the answer.
Even after the British Empire ended with the handover of Hong Kong in 1997, the UK has continued to do some evil things around the world. In 2003, Britain and America invaded Iraq, claiming that the Gulf nation's dictator Saddam Hussein was involved in the September 11th attacks in New York and possessed weapons of mass destruction. Both allegations proved to be false, with certain British political figures misleading the public to justify the invasion, which was in fact largely motivated by a desire to control Iraqi oil. Thousands of civilians died in the war, with millions more forced to flee their homes, and Iraq, which was a relatively stable country under Hussein, albeit with less than ideal human rights, is now incredibly dangerous, ravaged by terrorism ever since the war. It is quite evident that over the years Britain has engaged in numerous atrocious acts that we today view with horror. But we must remember that many of these actions were far more common and acceptable in the past than they are today. You will struggle to find a country without a brutal history. Slavery has been practiced by cultures across the globe for millennia, such as in the Arab and Barbary slave trades, and is still widespread in parts of the world today. It is only in the past few centuries that the view that slavery is an abhorrent practice has become mainstream, with Britain at the forefront of the abolitionist movement.
Oh,
Slavery
yes.
was never actually legal in Britain proper and was outlawed in British colonies before it was banned by America, Spain, France, Portugal, and Russia. British MP William Wilberforce devoted his life to fighting slavery, and many Brits did similar. After abolishing the slave trade in 1807, the British Royal Navy spent over 60 years patrolling the Atlantic Ocean to enforce the ban, with around 20,000 British sailors dying.
British sailors, let's take that back. Because this is the part where lots of people are forgetting. Slavery, and thank you for sharing this or bringing this, because lots of people believe this fantasy story without knowing what the real truth is. People died during the course of abolishing slavery. Lots of sailors died. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, this 20,000, this number, I want to believe this is not the exact number. It may be more than this. People lost families. And this is we're not talking about just one, we're talking about to save nations so people would get their freedom. But people are faulting them for ending slavery, faulting them for colonization. What do you really want? And then if countries are having conflict or whatever, they say get involved. Oh, you shouldn't have. We can help ourselves. But you asked for help anyways. What do you really want?
20,000 British sailors dying. Britain's opposition to the slave trade came at great financial cost to the nation, with it only paying off the debt it accumulated freeing slaves in 2015, around 200 years after they began the
200
process.
years.
In fact, it's arguable that no country has done more to combat this practice, which has been widely accepted for millennia, than the United Kingdom. Conquest and empire have also been a prominent part of all human history, as evidenced by the Spanish Empire, Rashidun Caliphate, Mali Empire, Aztec Empire, Persian Empire, and many, many more. One wonders why conquerors like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar are revered, but the British Empire is vilified. There are
You get is the fact that they always fault Britain and British and the Britain Empire, or fault Britain and British Empire rather. They always fault them. They are not pointing nothing. And why is that? In my state in Nigeria, where I'm from, Bayelsa State, we have I think a school was made, Wilberforce Island. Wilberforce Island. Was it Wilberforce? I think it was school, Niger Delta University, Wilberforce. I can't remember, but I think there was a place that was named in reference to Wilberforce, Walter Wilberforce, right? Yeah. It was named in reference to him. To remember him. I can't remember because it's been years I've been to my state, so I can't really remember William Wilberforce, right? I can't really remember it. But something was made in reference to him. But lots of people just want to choose the side of history that benefits their narrative or fits their narrative.
also some common myths about the British Empire that make it seem uniquely evil. You've likely heard that Britain has invaded 90% of the world's countries. This statement is somewhat misleading, as it implies that the
Yes.
United Kingdom has launched wars of conquest against the overwhelming majority of countries, when in fact many of these so-called invasions were actually defensive. For example, the so-called invasion of Japan in the 1940s was actually a joint response to the attack on US troops in Pearl Harbor and the Japanese invasion of British colonies in Southeast Asia. This statistic also overlooks the fact that borders are ever-changing and many modern countries are only recent entities. In fact, less than 70 of the world's roughly 200 countries existed in their current form before World War II, after which the UK began rapidly decolonising. Some also claim that Britain invented concentration camps and were the first nation to use them during the Second Boer War. This is not the case. Concentration camps were first used by the Spanish in 1896, during the Cuban War of Independence, 3 years before Britain's first usage of them. It is quite evident that, whilst the United Kingdom has committed its fair share of atrocities, it is not unique in its evil. But an area where Britain is unique is the positive impact it has had on the world we live in today.
Thank you. Thank you. The positive impact. And lots of people be like, oh, you're just supporting the or trying to continuing the slave thing and being whatever, licking your listen. If you want to liberate yourself first, you have to liberate yourself from here. It's a mind thing. It's a mindset thing. I will say this again. Point a nation that is standing today, especially nations that have history of being in power, point that nation that is standing today, that got to where they are as a saint without doing anything evil. And lots of times when you look at it, lots of it will just is either they're trying to help a nation or countries who don't even have the resources, help them in whatever conflict they have, or help them because they saw that there are some people that needed help. Why are they pointing or making references to one country? And when you look at it, the first people is always Britain. You hear some people say, oh, they are coming to the UK because the land is built from their resources, because some of the things were stolen from them. So they carry it and they are coming to collect it and go. Oh yeah, collect it and go. Go. But look at Britain today. Look at the UK today. Look at it. People are calling for the downfall of it. Make it make sense. Just make it make sense.
Firstly, some of the most prosperous countries in the world are former British colonies, including Australia, America,
Yes,
Canada, New
yes.
Zealand, and Singapore. Furthermore, it wouldn't be controversial to say that Britain has had the greatest cultural impact of any country in history. No
Yes.
country, besides maybe Greece, has had more influence on the spread of democracy than Britain. The British
Mm-hmm.
Parliament in Westminster is known as the mother of all parliaments, due to the fact that over 35 countries use the so-called Westminster system, involving a
35.
ceremonial head of state, an elected parliament, and a government formed by the party with the majority of the representatives. British imperialism also helped to eradicate barbaric cultural practices across the world.
True.
Cannibalism was widespread in pre-colonial Australia. However, as the colonizers' Christian faith spread throughout the Aboriginal community, it began to die down. The introduction of Christianity by British individuals also benefited parts of Africa, such as when Scottish missionary Mary Slessor shared the gospel with the Afik tribe in what is now Nigeria, resulting in them abandoning their practice of killing twin babies due to...
True. And this, I remember when I was growing up, when because I'm a twin, growing up when people would say, "Oh, thank goodness and thank God for Mary Slessor, because they were killing twins. So she came, she saved twin babies. Thank God." Like, I can't even forget the history and the story of Mary Slessor. And if you look at it, lots of people would share some other history or some side of history to paint her to be bad. Because lots of families that had twins back then, they knew what happened. They knew what it was or what happened. But it's a good thing that I was born and my twin sister were born, and thank goodness for somebody as noble as Mary Slessor. Oh no, people want to erase some part of history. We're going to take it back.
British colonies, including Australia, America, Canada, New Zealand, and Singapore. Furthermore, it wouldn't be controversial to say that Britain has had the greatest cultural impact of any country in history. No country, besides maybe Greece, has had more influence on the spread of democracy than Britain. The British Parliament in Westminster is known as the mother of all parliaments, due to the fact that over 35 countries use the so-called Westminster system, involving a ceremonial head of state, an elected parliament, and a government formed by the party with the majority of the representatives. British imperialism also helped to eradicate barbaric cultural practices across the world. Cannibalism was widespread in pre-colonial Australia. However, as the colonizers' Christian faith spread throughout the Aboriginal community, it began to die down. The introduction of Christianity by British individuals also benefited parts of Africa, such as when Scottish missionary Mary Slessor shared the gospel with the Afik tribe in what is now Nigeria, resulting in them abandoning their practice of killing twin babies due to fear of them being cursed. And in India, British authorities clamped down on the at least 2,000-year-old Hindu practice of sati, in which widows were made to sit on top of their deceased husband's funeral fire as a form of sacrifice. Additionally, some of the world's most popular sports, including football, rugby, cricket and golf, originate from Britain. And regarding literature, some of the world's greatest writers have been British, such as George Orwell, J.K. Rowling, Charles Dickens and Jane Austen, and the world's most famous and impactful literary figure, William Shakespeare. Britons have also greatly impacted the musical scene with groups such as Queen, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, as well as artists like Elton John, David Bowie and Adele. But the most obvious cultural impact that the British have had on the world is the English language. Despite England being a relatively small nation of less than 60 million, its language is the most spoken in the world with over 1 billion speakers. Britain is also responsible for some of the world's most important advancements in science and technology. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain due to the invention of the steam engine and railways. Britons invented many other things that we take for granted, including
Yes.
vaccines, penicillin, jet engines, and the World Wide Web. Furthermore, some of the world's greatest scientists were British, such as Isaac Newton, who discovered the laws of gravity, Francis Bacon, who came up with the scientific method, and Francis Crick, who helped to discover the chemical structure of DNA. Only America has produced more Nobel Prize laureates than the United Kingdom. As for the claim that the British Museum is full of stolen goods, some of these artefacts are in fact far better off in a museum in London than where they were found. For example, its most famous artefact, the Rosetta Stone, an ancient stele which has been crucial for historians to decipher ancient languages, was actually being used as a brick in an Egyptian fortress when it was discovered by French soldiers. The British people also have a military history that is rivaled by few, as evidenced by the fact that Britain went from being a relatively small island off the coast of Europe to conquering a quarter of the world. Britain has defeated some of history's most infamous dictators. Napoleon was defeated once and for all by a British-led coalition at Waterloo, and it was the UK and its empire who stood alone against Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany between the fall of France in 1940 and the German invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941. Britain also has a track record of defending smaller nations from tyranny. In 1489, King Henry VII of England sent thousands of troops to help defend the Duchy of Brittany from a French invasion, and less than a century later his granddaughter Queen Elizabeth I supported the Dutch in their uprising against Spanish persecution. This trend continued into the 20th century, with Britain entering World War I as a response to Germany violating Belgium's neutrality and declaring war on Nazi Germany in World War II due to its invasion of Poland. Overall, it is clear that, as opposed to being uniquely evil, Britain has done some uniquely great things. Granted, it has had more than its fair share of barbarism, but what other countries haven't committed numerous acts that are appalling by modern standards?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. God bless you. Which other country? Point a country that is a saint. Why are people making references to the bad things that happened in history? Why don't people want to face and focus on the positives and refer and remember that, oh, there was once one country or once one nation or once some particular group of people who thought it was going to be okay for them to render or lend their help. Britain could have turned a blind eye not to help nations and move on and still be ruling. I mean, wouldn't that be better?
Additionally, there are few, if any, countries in the world that have had as much of a positive impact as the UK. The positive impact Great Britain has had on democracy, sports, arts, culture, science, medicine and technology are arguably unmatched, and it has a track record of standing up to injustice and tyranny in the largest possible ways. Without the Brits, Hitler may well have won, the transatlantic slave trade may have lasted much longer, and millions more across the globe may have died from measles, smallpox, tetanus, and any other disease that vaccines are fighting. Therefore, if someone tries to tell you that the British people should be ashamed of their past, do remember that no country has a squeaky clean record, and that almost no one has brought the world as many positive changes as the inhabitants of this somewhat small, relatively unsuspecting island off the coast of Europe.
Thank you. Thanks to the narrator, because obviously this is it, and this is to Brits. People who are faulting them and making them guilty, or making you be guilty of being a Brit. They don't want you to appreciate what you have. They don't want you to appreciate what it is like to be British. Why is that? Yeah, okay, look at it. If we're being honest, they don't want you to be appreciative or to appreciate or to know the good things your country have done. But people are still coming into Britain and to the UK to enjoy the good of the land. Okay, if Britain is so bad or the British Empire is so bad, why are people coming to the UK asking them for rescue or for it would have been better you stay where you are now, Abby? Because Britain is so bad, the UK is so bad, they've done so bad things. it would be better off you stay where you are and don't go to them and go and um go to them for the bad thing. You go to them for help, or go to them because I mean they've done really bad things. Why are you going there? Go to stay in the place where where they only did good things. But people are still coming. People are not even asking some necessary questions. And it's the fact that it pains me so much when I see Britons, and like some of them feel so guilty, like, oh, their ancestors did this, or their ancestors were involved in this, and they feel guilty. Some of them be like, oh, they're so ashamed to be Britain. You say waiting. You say what? What did you just say? You obviously don't even know how much pride it is to be British. You don't even know how much pride it is. It's just that, yeah, we get some people who are will take this far above their head and want to use it and flip the script and repeat some actions. We get it. We're not erasing that part, but I mean collectively as a nation that Britain is, collectively, that name alone, that name alone is a noble icon on its own. Yeah. I now remember it's Wilberforce Island. That's the name. And that place is cherished. I think they have like a monument or something in reference to that as well, to William Wilberforce. I think they do. I'm not sure because it's been really, really long, and we're talking about this like far, far, far back when I even visited far, far back as 2007. Yeah, far back as no, not 27. Two, yeah, 27 was when I was there. So I mean that we're talking about far back, so I can't even really remember. So then it was like a monument where people go to visit and learn. If you are a Brit, you should be proud. Your country, your nation, your ancestors fought for the freedom and birthed lots of nations that we see today. So no, you should be proud. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of other people's evil doings, or people who just want to get all up in their head and say, oh, um, they want to do something because they love the idea of being in control. But think about how people came together collectively to liberate, help nations, thousands, that I don't think any other nation or any other group of people would ever do. Maybe in years to come, they will, but it will not be as what Britain has done. And that is for a fact. If you don't like them, anybody that does not like the positive side of the history, you know why. You don't like good thing. Because if you like good thing, you'll be focusing on the good things. And you look at the good of the nation and enjoy the benefits of the good of the nation or the good of the land. But let me know what you think about this so far. I'm sure tons of people have interesting things to share. I would really love you to share that and share the useful information you think might be really helpful. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all of that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.